Naftali Bennett is Israel's economy minister and joins us now live from CNN's Jerusalem bureau. Minister, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. First of all, let me get your response as a member of the Israeli government to what Hamas has said here, saying there will be no ceasefire, they will not agree to one, unless the 8-year blockade of Gaza is ended.
Well, we'll just have to continue until we beat Hamas. Hamas is a terror group that works out of Gaza, has shot over 2,000 rockets on Israeli towns and homes, including my own home in Ra'anana. This is unacceptable. But what's interesting is that who's standing behind Hamas? Who's funding Hamas? And the answer is Qatar. Qatar is a mass funder of terror and death all around the world, including $250 million to Khalid Mashal that has his headquarters in Qatar. And I think we have to stop this. I call on FIFA to cancel the World Cup in Qatar. It does not make sense. FIFA's slogan is fair game. Well, we have to stop playing to the game of terrorists, and we have to cancel the Qatar World Cup.
Just for the sake of balance here, we should point out that Qatar has denied the claims that you've made, Minister Bennett. You say that we have to, quote unquote, and I'm using your words here, beat Hamas, but at what cost here? Not financial cost, at what humanitarian cost on both sides of the border? Because we're now talking about nearly 800 people losing their lives, the bulk of whom are Palestinians who have nothing to do with Qatar and haven't had anything to do with Israel. Many of them have never actually been to Israel because they've been born inside Gaza and haven't been allowed out.
I think maybe you're missing something. We pulled out of Gaza Strip 9 years ago. There's not one Jew in Gaza Strip. We pulled out back to the 67 lines, and then thereafter, Hamas started shooting missiles on my family, on millions of Israelis. It's been now almost 3 weeks that 5 million Israelis have been in shelters. Imagine in America if 200 million Americans were in shelters and 2,000 rockets were falling on New York, Chicago, Miami, and San Francisco. There's no proportionality to that. With terror, you have to fight, you have to win. This is a global war on radical Islamic terror that its source is Qatar. They're the funders. Khalid Mashal is residing in Qatar. I don't think anyone can claim otherwise.
When you say we have to win, and I go back to the issue of these being 70% civilians, large number of them women and children, as I said, many children under the age of 10, who have been born inside Gaza, which is one of the most intensely populated places on earth. There is nowhere for these children to run and hide when the airstrikes come. Is that a cost
quite the contrary
that you feel comfortable with?
Quite the contrary. We are very sorry about any death of civilians that Hamas is causing, because Hamas places its citizens, its women and children, in a cynical and very cowardly way around the missile launchers. We've found 20 missiles in one school, dozens of missiles in another school, in hospitals, in homes. This is a cynical way where Hamas is sending the women and children to hide those missile launchers. They shoot at us, and then when they die, it's effectively Hamas's responsibility. I call on Hamas to stop that. This whole thing can go away if Hamas decides to disarm and stop shooting missiles on Israel.
Now, there's obviously a huge cost to Israel as well. We're not just talking about the humanitarian costs in Gaza and also Israel with the loss of lives. It is actually affecting your economy, and that is your brief, Mr. Naftali Bennett. This is affecting the tourism industry. We now know that flights have resumed to Tel Aviv Ben Gurion Airport, but only just in the last hour or so. How much economic pain are you witnessing at the moment, and what are you willing to put at risk here?
Israel's economy is very strong, resilient. We had our best quarter of high-tech startup investments the last quarter, almost $1 billion of startup investments. Israel is the startup nation. We're very strong. Certainly we're taking a hit, but it's nothing we can't get over. We're fighting for our lives here. We're surrounded by 300 million radical Muslims, or not all of them are radical, but Muslims. It's tough. We're in a very tough area. We're a free country, the only open democracy in this region. and we have to, unfortunately, fight to defend our own homes. What can we do? So certainly our economy is an asset in terms of our resilience.
And the conflict in Gaza is also having an impact on your budget as well. So far, estimates run from around about the 50 million mark in terms of the current operation. If it keeps going, that's what it's costing you as well. So it's not just lost revenues in tourism, it's costing you from your defense budget as well. You have to manage the books here for this country.
That's right, but you know, when you're talking about our own lives, I've got 4 children. I'm talking about their lives. We've had many rockets shot at my hometown of Ra'anana. There's no price tag to that. You know, the moment Hamas stops and disarms itself, we're done. We're not seeking to recapture Gaza or anything of that sort. We want them to lead a good life in Gaza and us side by side. We expect all the billions of dollars that have been invested in Gaza to go to building a prosperous economy there and not a fortress of terror. But they decided to spend all that money in terror tunnels that go into Israel, into thousands of missile launchers, into tens of thousands of missiles and rockets. It's their very poor decision. And I think the world should back this effort to fight terror. I think everyone recognizes that this was an unprovoked attack and put it to an end. But if the world doesn't do it, we'll need to do the job.
Naftali Bennett, the Israeli Economy Minister, thank you so much for joining us here on the Business View today. Well, this is the